All right, welcome to the Two Sons podcast. We're going to be covering episode 3 of Obi Wan Kenobi today. I also have a couple of extra special things. I want to get into that Andor trailer a little bit. And first, before we actually get started, I ended up rewatching Rogue One yesterday on a whim.
That's very fitting.
Not even sure how I got into it. But I ended up putting it on, and a lot of times, like when I'm eating, I don't like multitasking and trying to be productive, so I'll just put something on the TV to kill time, and so I put on Rogue One, and then of course I immediately got into it, and then I was like, well, I gotta finish this today, and I think that might be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
it's so incredibly good, and a couple of specific things, like they do such a good job of tying it into A New Hope. The first paragraph in like the rundown of the ship, of the scroll that comes across the screen, it references this key victory that the rebels won, and you know what? It kind of dawned on me in this rewatch, which is like my 5th rewatch of Rogue One. That was such a pivotal moment for like the rebellion existed. And the Empire was aware of the rebellion.
Right.
But that was like when all-out war started.
True.
And you can tell because they talk about Vader gets pissed at at Director Krennic because of an Imperial facility getting openly attacked for the first time at Edu.
Oh, yeah.
Which was something that had never happened. And and then it really dawns on you, like, and then that big council meeting where they're all debating whether or not they even want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you could just tell, like, there's all this talk and all of this secret organizing, but then there's like, at what point do we straight up start attacking the Empire? And then that's kind of where it started. And it's so good. All the characters did such an amazing job.
Right.
It's my favorite Star Wars movie.
I would agree. I think it's my favorite Star Wars movie too. And I know that there's probably people watching who are just freaking out hearing us say that. They're like, what about, the originals? Like, not true Star Wars fans. But honestly, I thought it was cool because and I said this before, it totally had old Star Wars vibes, but with like modern filming technology, had modern plot styles, and also it truly stuck with George Lucas's vision, which we've talked about multiple times on this show. Is it's so important to stick with that because that is Star Wars. Like, that's what we know, that's what you love. Now, of course, you can do new stuff. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm down for change, but it beautifully encased like what Star Wars is, and it added so much to what originally existed. And also it didn't create any weird plot holes that I'm aware of.
It filled an important story.
Yeah.
And you can tell George Lucas intended one day, I feel like he intended one day to tell that story because it just seemed very intentional with the description of that first battle that kind of is like kind of vaguely referred to.
Well, when they talk about it too in the original movies, they seem like shell shocked too when they're talking about how like so many people died getting that information, right?
Oh yeah,
it's real.
And there's a second version of that takes place in Return of the Jedi when they talk about. When Mon Mothma says many Bothans died to bring us this information, and
there you go.
That is another one that they might end up having to tell one day. That actually does get told in an old video game. So only the real Star Wars fans out there might even remember this, but real Star Wars fans who are computer gamers. But there was a game called X-Wing Alliance, which followed a cargo freighter pilot who joins the rebellion when his family is attacked by the Empire, and he ends up basically joining Rogue Squadron and executing all these missions, including at one point the mission. It's a massive space battle where they end up stealing or intercepting the information about the Empire. I think what was the key piece of information was that the Emperor actually was on the Death Star. But it's just cool little details like that, like intelligence, gathering that helped the rebellion win. There's one other specific note that I want to hit about Rogue One, but I want to save it until we get a little bit further because it relates to something in this episode of Obi Wan. So I want to start by just asking you, because again, we haven't talked. I've now seen the episode 2.5 times. I watched it once, and then I watched it with my wife, and then I watched it just some key scenes today.
I see.
To kind of reinvigorate where my head was at for this.
I've seen it once. I have a real job.
This is a good point.
Jason's a podcaster full time. I'm not.
Yeah, I work nights, so I have all this free time during the day to do things like watch Rogue One. Meanwhile, you have
Jason spends 20 minutes trying to figure out what he wants to watch as he eats his 10-minute meal.
Yeah, exactly. Luke is actually out there saving lives and stuff. So yeah, I will never push back on that. Anyway, I wanted to ask up front.
Yeah.
Like, what was your initial takeaway from the episode? What stood out to you the most? Like, if you had to pick one thing from this episode that resonated with you the most, what would it be?
Yeah. So 2 points. One point is I'm still loving it. So like any critique that Jason and I make today, I just want it to be clear. Like, I am loving this series. I think that they're doing a fabulous job on it. So, I hope you don't sound nitpicky today, because like I've absolutely loved it. I'm having a blast watching Obi-Wan. I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest scene, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, it's the meeting of Obi Wan and Vader, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We knew that it was going to happen, and I loved the scene. So like the actual breakdown of the scene was incredible, and we'll talk about it more in a little bit, but we knew the inevitable meeting of Vader and Obi Wan was going to happen. We just didn't know when. And by the way, we were totally wrong as far as when it happened. I thought, like it's episode 3, and the Obi-Wan and Vader have already met. Like that's incredible. There's no filler episodes in this so far, which I've loved.
We're halfway through this thing already.
I know, it's sad. It's sad. But anyways, like, the biggest scene would seem like, I think, Vader and Obi-Wan meeting, but I think there's so much more that's still untold about that, and I think we're still going to see so much more between them that I actually don't think it was the biggest part of the episode. I think what was the biggest part of the episode, for me at least, was literally a split-second shot that existed. So first of all, when Vader's walking through that town, and he's just manhandling everybody.
Snapping necks, man.
He's literally force pulling that person behind him just because. Like, there's no reason.
And she dies, clearly, because her family runs up on her and she's motionless on the ground. He straight up started murdering people.
It's so intense. But, you talked about the neck snap, right? So he snaps that teenager's neck.
The kid, yeah.
For no reason. And then the I'm sure you noticed, but the camera goes to the third sister for like a split second, and she looks uncomfortable about it.
Did you notice that?
Yeah. And then it goes back to everything else. And I think that's probably like the biggest scene.
What a hypocritical. She was cutting hands off.
I know, but maybe kids, we've got a theory, right? Maybe she was a Padawan. Maybe she did not feel protected by the Jedi during Order 66. So maybe kids get her. Right.
So, or dismembering, fine. Snapping necks, not fine.
There's something about it. Maybe she grew up in a home where someone liked to snap necks and it made her uncomfortable. I don't know. But anyways, I think the biggest scene is that, because I honestly think that there's a good chance that she ends up being good. I really do. The other thing too is when they get into that secret little lair that's like hidden, right? The rebel, I don't know, like hideaway area. She comes across the Jedi symbol.
She touches it.
And she feels, and she kind of seems, I don't know. They spent time with her touching that, I think, for some reason.
There was a moment. She had a moment with the symbol.
Right.
And there's no reason why, because I think almost immediately you pick up in that room that it's like basically the Jedi's version of the Underground Railroad, like just this secret pathway that you can get where people will help you. Yeah, analogy. Well, so let's start there. So they call it the Way, and it's definitely a shout out to the Underground Railroad, which existed in the 1800s to help slaves flee to the north. Yeah, and it involved a lot of similarities, like people risking their own lives to help the slaves. Yeah. And in this case, the Jedi. And then also, just in general, the fact that the Empire and the South were aware of this and were actively trying to stop this from happening.
Yeah, the Inquisitors, right?
I think it's almost 100% certain that she was a Jedi.
You think so?
In that opening scene.
Well, she definitely trained.
Yes.
Right. In the Force.
Well, but the one thing that is pushing against that is like when we found you in the gutter from when the Grand Inquisitor said that, which implies that they found her. But it could very well be that she just escaped from the Jedi Temple and then they found her in the gutter.
True.
But to me, like, so in Jedi Fallen Order, the video game, and I wish I could remember the name, but the Inquisitor that turns to the dark side, her master is the lady that is working on the ship, and when they have their conflicts between Cal Kestis and this Inquisitor, she says to him like, "Oh, you're hanging with her, my master. Do you think she's going to protect you? She's not going to protect you.
Oh, yeah.
She's not capable of protecting you." And then there's like this weird flashback where she's getting tortured. So like the point is like that dynamic of the Inquisitor who turned to the dark side because she felt as though the Jedi Order could not protect her. That's been done before in canon. So I think that is absolutely for certain. Whether or not she turns back to the light side, I think still remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like, dude, when she saw that Jedi symbol, there was like a moment.
There was a moment for sure.
Definitely a moment. So
and it happened like soon after the neck breaking scene. What are we talking about? The neck breaking scene.
Well, yeah. So in the neck breaking scene, you said it seemed random. Like on first watch, I thought the same thing, but then it dawned on me immediately. So what happens is Obi-Wan feels Darth Vader's presence, feels Anakin Skywalker's presence, hits him like a truck.
Right.
Okay?
It almost topples him over.
But if you watch Anakin or Darth Vader as he starts working his way down the street, he's not killing people. Yeah. But then he senses Obi-Wan. He pauses and he stops in the middle of the street. And you could tell he senses Obi-Wan. Yeah. And as soon as he senses Obi-Wan, that's when he starts messing some people up, snapping necks and dragging bodies into the street.
Snapping necks and cashing checks. So my theory is
it was exactly what happened with the Inquisitor in the bar. Like, if I start hurting humans, it will bait Obi-Wan into revealing himself.
Yeah, a Jedi.
So that's my theory as far as why Darth Vader was mercilessly murdering people for no reason.
What did you think about the Imperial Officer and how that got shown to us? The one that was obviously a part of the Rebels. Like, what did you think about the Stormtrooper scene with Obi-Wan and the blaster, and then her revealing herself?
So a couple things. First of all, we had a straight up bisected Stormtrooper.
I know. When I was talking to Jason's wife about this, we were both kind of stoked about that. We thought that was like a really interesting scene, right?
I was like, whoa, what just happened?
I know. Yeah.
and it's funny because like you could tell that like there's some sort of weird willingness to dismember with something that's not a lightsaber, but not
right, because
like I've seen in the Order 66 scene that Jedi just chopping up stormtroopers, but none of them were being dismembered. You know what I mean? That dude like fell and just immediately just bisected.
But it stayed true to Star Wars lore, thankfully, because anybody who gets bisected by like an energy beam should just have everything cauterized as it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So Disney's like, hey, this is really convenient. There's not a lot of blood.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to worry about blood. It's perfect. As far as that whole scene, like, I mean, it kind of just harkens back to what we were just talking about with the Underground Railroad. Like, it makes perfect sense to me that you would have people in the Empire that would. I mean, it's like Finn in the First Order. Yeah. It's like sometimes Agent Callus is a great example in Rebels. So like the idea is this: you just because you're working for the Empire doesn't mean you're evil.
Yeah,
and it's very easy to be in that environment and then be swayed one way or the other, and then be willing to do something about it.
Right.
And obviously, there's a certain amount of power that comes with that. I think the thing that would be tricky is I wonder like how much of a card you have to pull there before you've kind of spent those chances and no longer
how
have
many
your
stormtroopers can just die out in the field without them knowing, how'd you make it out of this one again? Where were you last night when there was a stormtrooper just getting shot up in the middle of the back?
Yeah,
always, dude. There's a lot of stormtroopers that get shot in the back when you're out. Like, what's that about?
Someone they trust is doing this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it happens.
But yeah, and then I mean, I at first I was kind of a little irritated by the Leia character just because it felt like they were pushing really hard to make her this like spunky. But to me, that whole thing works, and most importantly, like My producer at my show at the Volume, his name is Ryan, super smart guy and big Star Wars fan, and I've been talking a little bit with him, and a couple things that he said that I thought kind of explain some of these plot points. He explicitly mentioned he's like it has to be Leia because it's the only thing that would convince Obi-Wan to leave.
True.
To leave Tatooine and risk exposure.
Right. I mean, he essentially devoted his life to Luke and Leia at that point.
Exactly.
He became a hermit and devoted his life to protecting Luke, which kind of encompasses Leia.
Exactly. The only other thing that would have gotten him to leave is like if he found out that like Yoda was in some mortal danger,
right? And
he had to go help Yoda. But the other thing he said that I thought was really interesting is he's like, there's no way they were just going to have Vader in there once in terms of like. Not just I'm talking about appearances on the show, but like I mean in terms of a legit action scene.
Yeah, they
had to squeeze a second one in there.
I see.
And so they end up squeezing in this particular scene.
Yeah,
and I thought it was really cool because it makes sense. Obi-Wan's face shows up on a probe droid, and so if you remember in our preview, my guess was that they would discover Obi-Wan using probes. And then once Obi-Wan or the Inquisitors, and then once they had confirmed that they knew where he was, that's
sending in Vader.
That's when Vader would show up.
Sending in the big guns.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of probe droids, though, that was probably the one plot issue that I had. So you guys have met Lola before.
Yes.
She loves love, and she demands pets. So
and we did not expect a Lola in the show. That was an
Lola the droid, which I kind of freaked out on when I saw that. But anyways, plots and tell me if I'm wrong. But the third sister literally watches Obi-Wan get onto a transport that cannot be manned, right? So that transport was on its way somewhere, and then she sees it go with Obi-Wan and Leia on it. And then she goes back and they're like, we need to figure out where Obi-Wan is.
Oh, dude, I'm 1,000. And it was automated. It was an
automated
crazy
system. He even says he can't change it. And then it's just like, okay, so that kind of stunk. And they had to get them onto the planet of Makuzo probably just to, develop the plot, right? But there's so many ways that they could have done that. For example, because I was thinking about this on my way to work, just spending that 20-minute drive. And how about this? How about Obi-Wan's supposed to meet with like a smuggler, like Han Solo-esque, not truly Han Solo, and he gets onto a ship with the smuggler, and the ship happens to have like cloaking capabilities of some sort, right? And then there could have even been like a scrambling of like TIE fighters, which probably would have happened if, in real life, if there wasn't like a huge plot hole here. And they could have like gotten out of a hairy situation, maybe had some ship damage and had to land on a nearby planet, which could have been Makuzo. Mm-hmm. And then that's where the droids still could have come into play. Like that scene was cool when they were like showing like the inner workings of like how the probe droids are like deployed. Like,
oh,
that was
dude,
cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. But like, so like that just drove me crazy. I'm just like, why does that even exist? Like how did that even make it?
It would have been easy to miss that type of mistake. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I thought the same thing. Like, and again, we like the show, but it's just little details. Like the extent of what she could gather from that is like, we think they went to a mining planet. It was basically the extent of her. No, it's like, we literally heard this is an automated cargo platform. They should have been able to know exactly where that transport was going.
The Empire keeps track of everything.
Exactly.
Everything, right? Yeah. So that was kind of a bummer for me.
No, I totally get that. I did think so. Getting back to the Vader thing, So a couple cool things. First sight, Obi-Wan runs. Second sight, they face off.
Yeah.
When they face off, Obi-Wan says, "What have you become?" And he says, "I am what you made me."
Yeah.
Which was epic and goes. We had a lot of stuff in previous episodes that we talked about that ended up getting brought up. Like, for instance, we talked about Bane wanting to just murder civilians for no reason for his own for his own help. Like Darth Vader did that. We talked about Anakin blaming Obi-Wan for everything, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of very specific dynamics there that we kind of saw coming. But I thought that was really cool. And then it becomes abundantly clear up front that Vader knows Obi-Wan has lost a step. He's washed.
Oh, yeah.
And he's kind of like a stumbling lunatic in that fight.
Zero confidence.
Let's start at that point. So my theory is, and I'm curious to hear what you think, because she retrieves him, and now the pilot gets captured or killed, and Reva takes Leia. My guess is, so we end up getting a sight of Fortress Inquisitorius, which was first displayed in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. And it is a pyramid that comes out of the ocean. In Jedi Fallen Order, when you have to infiltrate it, they literally drop you out of the ship and you basically swan dive into the water and swim and infiltrate the facility. But it basically is a military installation because the Inquisitors are not just the guys holding the lightsabers. They're basically essentially a military battalion.
I see.
That they can
like specialized.
That
like
specialize. Yeah, they're special forces.
Yeah.
That's basically what they are. So Reva ends up taking Leia.
Right.
My guess is she's going to take Leia back to imprison her in Fortress Inquisitorius. And my guess is Obi-Wan and the woman who's helping him are going to retreat to this planet, wherever the Underground Railroad thing, the way, was going to take them. And when they get there, I think he's going to meet another Jedi. And I think we're going to have an episode where Obi-Wan goes Rocky Balboa training for the fight.
Oh.
And I think we're going to get Obi-Wan sharpening up his skills.
That would be cool.
So so I wanted to hear your response to that first, because I think that was the first indicator of the Darth Vader scene, was Darth Vader's aware now that Obi-Wan doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah. So, dude, it's funny because I was actually going to ask you that question because I have no clue what's going to happen next. I literally don't. I literally don't know what's going to happen next. I think your theory is great. I think it's perfect. I think one thing that shouldn't happen next is I don't think Vader should come in contact with Leia.
So Carly asked me about this yesterday because she goes, how did, because I was watching A New Hope this morning. And
true Star Wars fan.
Didn't actually watch all of it. I just had it with my morning coffee, so I made it like 15 minutes into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But she goes, how did Darth Vader not immediately know that Leia was Leia?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, this is the same question you're asking. And to me, if there's one easy explanation in any Star Wars Expanded Universe novel, you learn that the Jedi and the Sith have the ability to withdraw from the Force.
Yeah.
Basically, they stop using the Force.
Yeah.
And when they stop using the Force, they become imperceptible to Force users.
Oh, it's true.
So essentially,
we see that in the High Republic book with oh my gosh, what's his
Elzar Mann?
Yeah, Elzar.
Yeah, because he disconnects from the Force. Yeah, no, that's a great example. So essentially, like the way I look at it, it's kind of like Stranger Things, the TV series where there's like the upside down. To me, it's like there's the material world, and then there's like the Force world, and they're very intertwined. And Force users are existing in both worlds simultaneously. Right. But if you withdraw from one of the worlds, you're invisible to the people in the other world.
That does make sense.
And so essentially, for instance, Qui-Gon Jinn, who's dead, he still is existing in that Force world and can communicate with people, but it's not like a normal average Joe can see him, and vice versa. So essentially, with that dynamic, I just think that Leia, because she is not trained in the Force at this point, we know she eventually does, essentially after Return of the Jedi, but as of right now, she does not exist in the Force plane.
True, and there's nothing that's eluded us into thinking that she has Force capabilities. Like they haven't given us any hints or any. No, she hasn't done anything weird.
She doesn't do anything up through Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
the earliest indicator of her using the Force in canon is in which movie was that? I think it was Rise of Skywalker, when there's that weird scene where Luke and Leia are having a lightsaber battle in the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? So that's the first time we ever really see Leia. Oh, no, I guess in Last Jedi, she does the Superman.
I know. You're bringing back trauma.
Yes, exactly. The Force flight.
Oh, my gosh. When I saw that happen, again, in the theaters, I was just sitting there just holding my face like what I'm doing right now. That bothered me so much.
Anyway, I don't think it's as important that Vader runs into Leia simply because Leia right now is imperceptible within the Force.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
No, I think that does make sense. That makes great sense. Yeah,
but about the Obi-Wan and the weakness thing. So you didn't really have a guess.
So as far as like big next steps, yeah. So
does what I'm saying make sense?
Oh, of course, okay. because at some point we know Obi-Wan and Vader are probably going to meet up again, and just from like a cinematic standpoint, Obi-Wan's got to do better.
Oh yeah,
right,
dude. Yeah. It's not like he's just going to go out weak.
But I did like how they portrayed that battle, because it was obvious the whole entire time that they were fighting each other that Vader was in complete control. I mean,
he's toying with them
to the point where like Obi-Wan's struggling, two hands on lightsaber, and then Vader's just standing there with one arm out holding his lightsaber. The other thing that was really, really cool is, again, Bane reference. We know that when Bane was going through his academy, that how important it was not just to be able to spar with someone with a lightsaber, but then there was also that constant battle of using the Force. So,
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. Really, I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, with it. Anybody who's in any type of lightsaber battle knows that they always have to have a guard up using the Force, right? And it was obvious how out of practice Obi-Wan was, because when Vader wanted to, he literally picked him up and did a Force choke with him, and it was so obvious just how out of touch Obi-Wan was.
That was the Force version of punking someone.
Yeah.
Like, I am so much more powerful than you.
Yeah.
That I am blasting through all of your defenses, and there's nothing you can do. So what Luke is referencing is essentially both the Jedi and the Sith. They explain this really well in the books. They can essentially put effectively like a Force defense shield around
it's like a
them.
Force field, yeah.
And it makes it so that if someone were to like reach out and push you with the Force, if your defense was strong enough, you would hold. It would break against your shield. But like frequently throughout the books, like if a really powerful Force user attempted to do that to somebody who was weaker than them, that shield would effectively just shatter.
Yeah.
And they would succumb to whatever happened. So so when you're visually watching a movie and you see something like Vader Force pushing Obi-Wan, he's got a shield up, obviously very weak in his weakened state, and Vader's just pushing through that. The best way that I would describe it is like if you've ever played Super Smash Bros. Of course. When you like pull the trigger and that little bubble pulls up and the bubble shrinks over time. Like it's but if you hit them with like one of your more powerful weapons, it'll just shatter through the thing. So that's kind of the way that I looked at that. But it also became abundantly clear up front that Vader is not interested in killing Obi-Wan.
No.
He wants to torture him.
Yeah, and you're totally right. And I almost got the vibe, so at the end of the scene when the fire is blocking Obi-Wan and Vader, I mean, it's pretty clear that if Vader wanted to go get Obi-Wan, he could, right? So, I mean, it's almost like he let him escape for some reason, because like that fire line wasn't all that long. And I don't know if that's just like maybe a cinematic-ish like problem, or if Vader seriously was just sitting there watching Obi-Wan get picked up and taken away and not trying anything. In the rewatch, so Vader topples that silo, and when the silo topples, all these like objects fall out. We don't know what they are, presumably mining equipment or something that they are mining. He dips his lightsaber in. It's super cool moment. Lights the fire. It's kind of like a tame fire. It's just kind of on the ground. It's a smolder.
Exactly. Yeah. And the sole purpose of the fire is just to burn Obi-Wan.
And literally to almost perfectly mimic what Anakin went through.
Exactly. A little poetic justice.
So
right?
Did you notice the agony and the screams that Obi-Wan was making, and how they're almost like exactly what Anakin sounded like?
Dude, it was
almost like they used the same sound.
And Obi-Wan's like, this is only the beginning of your suffering.
Or you Vader.
But when she shoots, she kills the stormtrooper. Second shot, she doesn't shoot the ground. So Vader's holding Obi-Wan down, and then he does a force push. And when he does the force push, it throws Obi-Wan like 10, 15 feet. It also puts the flames out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But she doesn't just shoot the fuel again. She shoots the second silo.
Oh, okay.
So when she shoots the second silo, it's not just a little ground fire; it's huge.
It's bigger.
And on on my third rewatch of this scene, I just rewatched this scene. On third rewatch, you can hear the stormtrooper saying, "The fire's too big. We can't get around it."
Oh, I see.
So what it actually, and if you kind of capture the scene, there's clearly all these like hills, like these big.
Yeah, kind of surrounding him.
Like 20-foot tall plateaus, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like surrounded almost like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
And the original fire was clearly only covering a small portion of it. But the second fire, it must have like bisected that horseshoe. But you're right. I mean, to your point, like, let's say they get to their ship. Like, how does the Star Destroyer orbiting the planet not... but then again, it's like a planetary blockade requires tons of ships. So
it does.
It's not, but to your point, it's like it should have been somewhat easier to scramble fighters and find out where,
for the original one.
For something,
Yeah, well, for the like the first one, when Obi-Wan's on the transport, yeah, like that's a little bit lame. But I honestly think that the way that the scene with Vader and Obi Wan, how that was filmed, was just epic. Incredible.
It was so good.
There was this one part two where Obi Wan's face is lit up with blue, right?
Oh,
and
so
then
cool.
And then they do like a wide angle shot on everything, and it's just Vader and Obi Wan, and they're just going at it. And it was just classic.
Oh, where it's zoomed out and you just see the lightsabers in the distance.
Oh, so cool.
Dude, and when Obi-Wan first turns on his lightsaber, I have such a cool moment. Because he does the epic like quick turn and like defensive stance.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that too.
That's his stance.
It's his stance. It's his old man stance.
It's his old man stance. Because his new man stance is the...
Yeah. It's the old man stance. And I think it's cool. So like when I see directors and when I see, essentially filmmakers, to me this is a film. It really is. Like you can call it a TV show, sure, but essentially these are tiny movies.
It has a budget of a movie.
Yeah. But like when you see effort be put into even small details like that, it just makes me feel like they're heading in the right direction, and that's literally all I ask for. Like again, 100%
agree.
I'm having such a good time with this episode.
Just enjoying it.
With this series, I mean. Yeah. And I can't believe it's almost over already.
Oh, I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in general, I thought that scene was immaculately executed, incredible cinematography. That scene where you see Vader's helmet kind of shining in the flame behind the background, all of that is epic. Everything about it was incredibly well executed. Right. And you know what? It worked for me. It didn't feel, like my producer said, they needed to get a second Vader Obi-Wan scene in there, but it didn't feel forced to me.
It didn't feel forced at all.
Because I didn't even think about that until he brought it up to me.
It did not feel forced at all. And like the whole entire feel of it was awesome. And it was so much fun for me to see the stormtroopers again. Mm-hmm. And stormtroopers will always be disposable. Like just getting shot in the back.
They can die in mass.
Yep, I know. And then there's still terrible aims.
Yeah. Oh,
still just terrible.
Well, yeah. Okay. So couple quick funny things. So first of all, watching A New Hope, when the stormtroopers destroy the sand crawler, they're talking about Obi-Wan's like, look at these blast points. Like only Imperial stormtroopers are this precise. And I'm like, okay.
We know more.
So here's my big Vader thing that reminded me of Rogue One, because there's the scene in Rogue One where Vader just starts
goes off,
messing up the rebel soldiers, and then obviously he's super powerful. Carly, when I first watched Carly's my wife, when I first watched that episode and Vader's messing up Obi-Wan, she's like, how is he doing that to him? And I'm like, so in theory, judging by the midichlorian count, the prophecy, everything surrounding what the original movies were, Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one.
Right.
He's the most powerful Force user in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So powerful that father, sister, brother, which is a whole other separate thing that we don't need to get down into. But in Clone Wars, there's basically like these other superior Force beings that are effectively represents the balance of the Force.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing in Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars. But anyway, the point is like they wanted him to basically take father's spot. Like that's how powerful Anakin was. So this is the thing that bothered me the most when that dawned
was
on
super
me.
Deep Star Wars. So if you did not understand that, just
if you didn't understand father, sister, brother, just keep it moving. Just keep it moving.
Don't even worry about it. It's okay. If you don't know, you can't afford it. All right.
But this is my beef with it. Anakin was the chosen one.
Yeah.
The entire story of episodes 1 through 6 surrounded the story of the chosen one. the rise and the fall and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, ending with him bringing balance to the Force by murdering Emperor Palpatine, tossing him down the shaft. And I already knew that the sequel trilogy took a giant dump on everything that George Lucas ever built. Yeah. But even deeper than that, the Chosen One storyline is made worthless by the sequel trilogy.
I know.
It's made completely worthless. If anything, Rey is the real hero.
Well, yeah, she's a Skywalker, dude.
Yeah, she's an adopted Skywalker. But like, dude, I was like, as I'm watching that, I'm like, this is like Anakin. This was supposed to be the Anakin story, and it got ruined.
Seriously, if episodes 7, 8, and 9 got wiped off the face of the earth, and if my children never saw them, I would be happy. That's such an intense statement. I know
it's the truth, though.
But it's the truth, because for the point that you just made, like this time, this space and time in the Star Wars universe, right, is hinged on exactly what you just talked about Anakin, essentially Anakin, aka Vader, giving balance to the Force, and then in episode 7, 8, and 9, they're like, oh wait, Palpatine's
none
still
of that
alive.
Matters. Yeah.
It's like crusty Palpatine's alive. His finger's falling off, but he's still here.
Which, by the way, they had a perfectly good. This is something we haven't talked about on the show that I think is absolutely insane, and we'll save the Quinlan Vos stuff for later because we've already gone pretty long. But dude, it has been essentially admitted to by Disney that they went into the sequel trilogy without a plan. They made the first movie, and that was the extent of their planning before they moved on.
I know.
Like, they didn't even have, like, hey, what's the general idea? Like, so for instance, we have Snoke, right?
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going to happen with Snoke. They decided to kill Snoke randomly in the second movie.
Which cracks me up. And that's literally why I wanted the bar question cracked me up when you asked me that in I think it was our first episode, right? And you're like, what would you say to Johnson if you met him in a bar? And the reason why I asked that, the reason why I was going to say, like, hey, like, why do you consider a Star Wars fan? Why do you consider yourself a Star Wars fan? Is because of, like, that point that you just made. It's just like nothing made sense at all. It was just, it was like, this is space battles and like Han Solo's in it and Chewie, so like it's gonna be good, right? No, it wasn't.
But let's be 1,000% clear. They'll never admit this. I am convinced that there was no intention of bringing back Palpatine until episode 8 went the way it went. And they had to salvage things.
Oh my gosh.
That's literally what it was. And again, like,
maybe.
Because like even the thing at the beginning was super tacky, where it's like, I am every voice you have ever heard. And you're just like, it's literally like it literally reminds you of like just the cheesiest like cinematic like cliches where it's like, this whole thing was a dream.
Oh, I know. I was just gonna bring that up. Yeah. Like, but then he woke up and
it was a deception. And you're like, oh gosh, like this isn't Twilight Zone, man.
Which, again, so we're being critical, and this show's not about us being critical, and everyone like who's watching is like, okay guys, but anyways, like, again, we've been super happy with Kenobi.
We saved the criticism for the end.
We do.
We were mostly positive.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, love the original Star Wars, love the prequels, love Rebels, love Clone Wars, love Solo, love Rogue One, love all the new books that are coming out. Boba Fett was awesome. Like, all of this is incredible. The Kenobi series is amazing. Mandalorian is amazing. It's just like episodes 7, 8, and 9 are just like,
they're dog shit, man.
Let's get rid of them.
Like, they're so bad. And like, it just, again, like, I just can't imagine. Like, how was it that there wasn't someone in the room, or was there someone in the room?
There probably was.
The silent hero here, who's like, so what's the plan for episode 8? And Catherine's like, we don't have one yet. Like, you don't have one yet?
What? And then they just kill him.
Seriously though, like, because again, they literally decided at the last second, like, never mind, let's just bring Palpatine
I know.
back.
And 27,000 million Star Destroyers with huge guns strapped on the bottom of them.
Yeah, and the types
Just
of
like,
hoops they had to jump through to make that work. Like, for instance, making a National Treasure-esque like history journey chasing clues that are like these nifty historical clues that all took place in the last like 20 years.
Oh, I know.
Where it's like
when
so
they, like hold up the thing and it's like Goonies style where they like hold up the little like the knife first. Yeah, it's a knife.
Mind you, like that it still would have been cheesy if that was something like to help you discover something from 10,000 years ago.
Right.
It was from the Death Star crashing.
Which, by the way, is being pummeled by like waves. And like salt and water.
It is absurd. Like,
yeah.
Okay. There's a reason why we keep ending up down this rabbit hole. Like,
it's because
the sequel trilogy is one of the most poorly executed cinematic endeavors in the history of Hollywood. Like, in the history of Hollywood. It's which I don't even. I think Disney is running LucasArts out of your. I could be wrong. Are they running? It doesn't matter. Anyway, my point is like it's a travesty. It's an absolute travesty.
I agree.
Gosh.
But back to Obi-Wan, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I mean, as far as Obi-Wan goes, I mean that was the gist of it. In my notes, I had. Fortress Inquisitorius, which we talked about, which is awesome. Is really, really cool.
Which, by the way, again, they did a fabulous job with making Empire-related things feel like the Empire. Super slick floors, giant tall ceilings,
austere but like epic at the same time.
All the officers, amazing. Yeah. One question that I've got for you, Jay, is the Grand Inquisitor.
Okay.
Do you think he's actually dead?
Well, he can't be. So. And I'm glad you brought this up because I did some research on this and they ended up questioning a writer. So the Grand Inquisitor actually apparently and I didn't remember this, but I have seen it before. But the Grand Inquisitor actually dies in Rebels from falling off of a cliff.
Okay.
So they asked a writer, they were like, hey, what's the deal with the Grand Inquisitor? And the writer responded, all you need to know is we won't break canon, and that's all I'll say. So that essentially implies that the Grand Inquisitor will survive.
Cool.
And now it remains to be seen what will end up happening with him, because there's also a guy in the trailer for the new Jedi Survivor video game, which is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, that appears to be an Inquisitor that looks very much like the Grand Inquisitor. So it remains to be seen what they end up doing there. Did you have anything else in your notes?
Andor,
yes.
Andor release.
The Andor trailer, and we're very stoked about that because obviously, like, we're going to talk about a lot of different things on this show, but I would like to talk about a lot of Star Wars. Yeah. And I feel like we're heading into a phase where we're going to get a pretty steady stream of Star Wars, which is exciting. Yeah. A couple of things that stood out to me about the Andor trailer. It's very, very clearly set up immediately following the fall of the Republic. The stormtroopers look like clone troopers still. I don't know if you saw that in the trailer. Oh. Towards the end, if you pause, you can see there's a scene where you see like 3 or 4 stormtroopers' faces, and they've got clone helmets. They're flying in clone transports.
They are.
Mm-hmm. All of the Republic or Empire officials are wearing different uniforms than they usually wear. They're like kind of like the cheesy looking, almost revolutionary looking. And just in general, it looks like it's going to be an origin story for Mon Mothma and Cassian Andor. Yeah. A couple really interesting characters.
I'd like them to...
I'm super excited about it.
Figure out... I'd like to see how K2SO comes about. He's one of my favorite droid characters. No, we don't know.
But we can assume, though.
Yeah, I'd assume he is, because he's an influential character, right, in Rogue One. So I think it looks cool. I think... so there's certain times when we see... like the elites of Star Wars. And one of them that I think is really cool is we see that in Plagueis. Right. Yep. So like the elite level, like type senator type, high level Coruscant people. Right. And it seems like we're going to get a really cool contrast between like low level, essentially slaves with, in contrast with like the high level, like superior beings of like the universe. Right.
Yeah. So the upper class,
essentially. So it's going to be cool to see, how they portray that. Also, one part that I really thought was cool in the trailer was the 2 officers essentially like holding their coffees.
Oh, just chilling, like drinking out of the thermos. And Andor's in the background going like, look at how like proud of themselves they are or whatever. Yeah. Well, it was kind of perfect.
Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of, so you remember the movie Taken? Liam Neeson like comes in contact with the guys who are in charge of taking his daughter, right? And then the guy is about to get killed by him, and he's like, it wasn't personal or something like that. But to him, it really was. And it kind of like, it sheds this new funky light on the Empire that I never thought of, where it's just like, these guys are literally going to their jobs. They're drinking their coffees at job, doing their thing.
They're getting murdered by rebels.
Well, yeah, but, or like murdering civilians, it's just part of their job. And they probably just go home to their wives or go home to their husbands. And it's just super interesting to think of like the rebels, or not the rebels, the Empire as like a day job, but
it's what it is. It's what it is for those people.
For a lot of them, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of a funny light on Star Wars that I've never thought about, but of course it has to be there.
In general, too, like I've always been super fascinated by like the logistical dynamics. Like, remember when people used to complain about the prequel trilogy? They'd be like, we don't care about the intricacies of intergalactic trade routes or stuff like that. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. It's so cool.
So for me, like one of my favorite things about the whole Empire concept is like, the level of detail George Lucas went to establish how the Empire was in control.
Right.
So even in A New Hope, there's a scene where they're all sitting around the conference table.
Yeah.
And I just watched it today, and one of the guys is like, how are we supposed to have control over the people if we dissolve the Senate?
Right.
Like, we need it. And then you hear, Moff Tarkin say, like, we don't need the Senate anymore. We will have regional governors, and fear of this battle station will keep the local systems in line. And like, you understand that, like, that's why the Death Star was so important to them. It was the only way for them to dissolve the Senate.
Yeah.
Because fear was the only way. Mm-hmm. And what I like about Andor, which I'm excited for them to get into, Mon Mothma makes references in the trailer that she's being followed.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool because you could tell it's like they get mad at Reva for stealing the senator's child. Like, the Empire is supposed to like be kind of this benevolent, like, we're in charge.
They're the government.
We're just the government, but at the same time, like, the people leading them are literally the Dark Lords of the Sith, So it's like they're like, we don't operate under a moral boundary.
Yeah,
like, so you could tell it's like, okay, Mon Mothma, the senator from Chandrila, we need to keep an eye on her.
Yeah,
she's a rebel.
Right,
can't kill her, because if we kill her, the Senate will find out.
True,
but. Like that. And even Leia, when she gets captured, she's like, I am a senator from Alderaan on a diplomatic mission. You cannot do this to me.
Yeah.
And then Darth Vader's like, you are a part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away. I've always been super fascinated by that dynamic. And Andor, I think Andor is going to be a show that you and I both really enjoy.
Yeah, I think so too. Last thing, it almost felt like like Lord of the Rings-esque for some reason.
It does have a weird throwback vintage vibe.
Yeah, I don't know. It was cool. Anyways.
In theory, though, like in those first years after Order 66, it would be kind of unorganized. And
apparently, this is like 5 years leading into Rogue One. Apparently.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because there's some tricky stuff there, because Cassian Andor is like, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So presumably he became a rebel at 6, which would mean he'd have to be pretty damn young at the time of the series. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll figure it out at some point.
Right.
All right, guys. That is all we have for today. I do want to get into Quinlan Vos eventually, but my guess is either he'll be revealed in episode 4 or someone like him will be revealed. The only reason we were going to talk about him is in case he was going to be a prevalent part of this show, but that was an interesting reference. My theory is we're going to see another Jedi that ends up helping Obi-Wan get back on his 2 feet. We were a little bit slow on this one, but a lot of that has to do with my job. It's the NBA finals, and I'm just slammed almost every night. And obviously Luke's job keeps us busy, but we're going to try to record our reaction to episode 4 on Wednesday morning.
Perfect. Yep.
So that we can get this out as quickly as possible to you guys. We will figure out a way to make that work. As always, we appreciate your guys' support, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.